we go. Before we get our calls started, one of the things we always like to do, which is best practice in youth programming, is land ourselves on some group agreements for our time together. If you would please take a moment, reflect on the agreements up on the screen, and add in to the chat box what is a group agreement that you're holding as your intention today. And just type the number in. I'm seeing some numbers popping in. All right. Excellent. We're going to roll on for our agenda today. There are several items that we're going to touch base on for news and business. We did want to give a quick update on our AmeriCorps program. Our AmeriCorps program, as many of you saw on the news nationally or here in Alaska, unfortunately, our program in May, or at the April 28th, was doged. We were part of the $4 million cut to the AmeriCorps program by the Department of Government Efficiency. We unfortunately had to end and cease all work on that. However, we do have an application currently moving forward for a new round of AmeriCorps funding. We are optimistic that we'll be able to get that program up and running before the start of the school year. We'll be reaching out to folks. Our application is currently in the review process. We will be knowing here probably by the beginning of July if that application is approved. And we'll be hustling to get it started. So we will make sure to keep partners know, so stay on the lookout to our newsletter about that. We're going to roll into new business. Our first new business item is we have a guest speaker in from Lean Girls. Erica is with us from Lean Girls and is going to be sharing more about their curriculum. Erica.
Thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate it. Like Thomas said, my name's Erica Moreno, she, her pronouns. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and I also have a sunny day here today. So I'm glad that you're experiencing a sunny day in Alaska as well. I am the director of partnerships here, and my background before coming to Lean Girls, I did some classroom teaching and a lot of nonprofit work before coming here to work with organizations like you all, schools, out of school time programs to bring Lean Girls to your girls. So next slide, please. What is Lean Girls? We are a completely free, and I'll say that again, free. So everything we provide is at no charge to any of you, any of your teens. A free leadership curriculum that helps girls see themselves as leaders in this world we live in that often tells girls they're not leaders. They're too young. They can't do whatever they want to do. Next slide, please. And we know, and I'm sure all of you in the after school, out of school time space can speak to the slide even better than I can, but this is a really critical time for our teen girls. We know we focus on the ages 11 to 15, so middle school and early high school. We know that this is an age when girls are becoming aware of who they are and who they want to be. And as they're doing that, they are facing also the structural barriers that exist in their home, in their school, in their community. And we know that girls' confidence drops. Less than 1 in 4 girls think they have the qualities to be a good leader. And almost 50% think that speaking their mind will make them unlikable. So next slide, what we are here for is that together with our curriculum and all of you boots on the ground, we can change this. Next slide. And how we do that is through our program. So again, a free curriculum designed for girls ages 11 to 15 here. And we have 15 sessions. They are all 1 hour long, and they're designed to be very hands-on, very engaging, where the girls have a chance to share their voice, share their experiences, and also designed to be very easy to implement. So our curriculum, I have some screenshots later, but our curriculum has a step-by-step guide. Somebody can pick it up and honestly read a facilitator script. We don't recommend reading it word for word, but it's designed to be very turnkey, where if you have summer staff or, recent high school or college grads working for you, they can pick it up and deliver this content really easily here. And we do offer facilitator training and hands-on support for all of this, but it's also designed to be very turnkey. And then just emphasizing again, everything is free. The curriculum, support, and training all at no cost here. So on the next slide, you can see that we partner with over 170 actually mission-aligned organizations. So we work with after school time organizations like you all. We work with schools, both girls' schools and charter schools, public schools, independent schools, that we work with, Boys and Girls Clubs, Girls Inc. So we partner with really anybody who's interested in helping their girls see themselves as leaders and offer our curriculum and support to them here. On the next slide, you'll see that we are also very evidence-based. So we have been live for 2 years. So we are a fairly new program. If you're wondering why you haven't heard of this free evidence-based curriculum, we only launched in the summer of 2023. But before launching, we did a ton of testing, a lot of efficacy data, pre and post surveys, and found that girls are having fun. So they'd recommend the program to a friend. And then going through the program, we saw that girls are more confident, are more connected to their peers, so build that sisterhood, that camaraderie. They're more resilient to failure and have a stronger bias towards taking positive risks. And that is so important because we know that our girls have a higher fear of failure than our boys and tend to strive for perfectionism, which to a degree can be very unhealthy for some of our girls. So on the next slide, I'll take you through the curriculum overview. Go ahead. And you can see here a ton of text. So we'll send this out after. You don't need to memorize this. You can screenshot it if you want to. But this is our curriculum. So I mentioned we have 15 sessions here, and every session is an hour long, and our sessions are divided into parts. So you can think of the parts as modules or themes, and you are able to take this 15 session 4-part curriculum and run as few or as many sessions as your girls need. And that can be dependent on the time. So if you have 10 hours, run 10 sessions. So it can depend on logistics or on content. So looking at what this curriculum covers, you can choose what parts to cover or what sessions to cover based on what your girls in your community are struggling with. So part 1 talks about values and strengths and how that contributes to girls' unique leadership style. Part 2 goes into naming and challenging stereotypes, reframing failure, embracing healthy risk-taking, and setting bold goals despite this kind of fear of failure. And then part 3 gets into talking about bias. So girls identify different aspects of their identity and how that may impact the bias they experience. And then part 4 kind of rounds it all out with how to be an ally, how to show up for your peers, how to combat this mean girl culture that we see emerging, re-emerging, if you will, and really just combat and be peers to each other. And then we have a celebrate at the end to really help girls celebrate how they've grown through their leadership journey, whether it's 5 sessions or 15, and also commit to moving forward after leading girls, how they will continue to lead. So on the next slide, you will see, I mentioned some screenshots of the curriculum here. There, perfect. And this just shows how turnkey and easy to implement it is. You can see it's nicely designed. We have step-by-step facilitator guides that will walk you through, like I mentioned earlier, a sample script, walk you through minute-by-minute breakdowns. We have activities for the girls during the sessions, as well as a workbook for the girls to kind of follow along to write down one action at the end here. And then we also have a virtual training, and then myself and my colleague Kelly are here for hands-on support. So if you're like, hey, like I have a question on, which sessions are best for my girls, like we offer office hours and all that to support you all. And then the next slide will show you how to get started. So if you're thinking about like, this is potentially a good fit for my after-school organization, how it works is you're planning your program in 3 simple steps. So it's thinking about who will run the program, and just highlighting here, you don't need any experience. Anybody, any gender can facilitate this program. All you need is an interest in empowering girls and a passion to learn alongside your girls. And we recommend 1 adult per group of 6 to 20 girls. So thinking through who will lead, then thinking through when and where you'll meet. For all of you, given that you're already in kind of this out of school time, after school space, thinking about if you already have an after school program, thinking about will you start a girls group, thinking about like where the Lean and Girls curriculum will fit into the existing programming you're already providing is a great place to start here. We recommend meeting weekly, but it really depends on what you're already doing. We have programs that meet daily. We have programs that meet once a month. We have programs that run 5 sessions in 1 day during a summer camp. So it's very flexible. And then lastly, thinking through what sessions you will run. So I shared previously all 15. We recommend starting with the earlier sessions as it establishes group trust and kind of lays the foundation for the more complex conversations. But you are able to kind of plug and play based on if you're like, we have a really big, bullying issue. I want to focus on allyship. You can kind of pull out those sessions and start there. And then the next slide, once you have, and then actually one more click here, once you have, or back, there's like an animation on that slide, my bad. Once you have your plan, you will register your program here. And one more on the register your program slide, and then click one more time forward. Yeah, there we go. Apologies about that. So once you have your plan, the most important step now is to register your program. This is a link to a Google form where you're going to tell us your plan. So this is where you're going to say, I'm planning to run in my after school program, kicking off in September with, 20 girls, and I want to use the full curriculum. So you'll just check all the boxes there. What that will do is that will tell me and my team that you plan to run so that we can connect with you, support you, make sure you have everything you need, which includes the curriculum, the training, support, and access to our online facilitator community here. So that's just an important step. And that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions. The email here is from my colleague, Kelly. I will also drop my email in the chat, Erica at leaningirls.org. But happy to answer any questions if we have time. And if not, you may email me. I will defer to you, Thomas.
Yeah, Erica, one of the questions I had as you were going through the presentation, is there any type of like pre-training or like any video sports folks can watch to be able to kind of get accustomed to the curriculum, or is it really just going through and saying, hey, this is what we're interested in, then you contact them directly? Can you explain a little bit more of that, like how folks get in the know, or is it really just open it, boom, there it is?
Great question. Let me actually drop this link in the chat, which is a sample session. And I think seeing the content really does help kind of understand how it'll come to life. To answer your question directly, we don't have like getting started videos right now. We are talking about doing those because I think it'd be a great idea. But you'll see here in the content, and if you just keep scrolling through, everything is laid out step by step. So we talk about the goals, the key takeaways, the why, research behind why here. And then the minute by minute breakdown of the session. And you can modify this, but it's there for you to start with. And then how to get prepared. So how to gather materials, what to print out. It's all like basic classroom supplies. And then as we get into the actual session, you will see it's broken out step by step with that sample script, and with discussion questions and what to like draw out of the girls if, they're not kind of an engaged group that day. So it really is like, as far as delivering the content, the PDFs that we provide are very comprehensive, in that you can pick it up and deliver the content here. And then the training, the virtual training that we offer, and it's offered at least twice a month, does go into a little bit more of kind of the principles to keep in mind as you are kind of delivering the content as well.
That is fabulous. Yeah, I really love the layout of that curriculum. Super simple, easy to use. We'll make sure to share it out as well to folks who are listserv as well. Any other questions? All right, Erica, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And thanks for sharing this curriculum with us and others. We'll make sure to promote it through the network. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you all. Thanks for all the work that you do every day. Bye, everyone.
All right. Next up, we have Eric Peterson from the Afterschool Alliance. He's going to give a federal policy update for us. As you've been seeing in our newsletter, there's been a lot afoot and happening around 21st century funding and other after-school funding sources. We asked Eric to jump on to share a little more information.
Thanks so much, Thomas. Well, I guess it's after 12 there, right? So good afternoon to folks, and glad it's sunny up there. Joining you today from Washington, D.C. And gonna try to keep this to 5 to 7 minutes. There's a lot, as Thomas said, so I'm gonna talk fast. But know that we have a blog with a lot of this stuff. Actually, a new one that'll cover most of what's in the slide being posted tomorrow morning on our website. And always feel free to reach out if you have questions or if there's anything we can do to help. So I'm going to kind of talk about briefly the three different budget processes that are going on right now. So we have the annual appropriations process. There's the fiscal year 2025, which we are currently in right now, that ends on September 30th. But those funds from the federal government for fiscal year 25 fund the 25-26 school year. So the upcoming school year for things like 21st Century Community Learning Centers, Title I, other funds. And then there's the fiscal year 2026 appropriations process. That's the one that the president just came out with his proposed budget, and that Congress is currently marking up that bill now. That's for the next school year, so starting fall 2026. And then there's this third other thing going on called reconciliation. It's not an annual appropriations process. It takes place occasionally. It does not focus on annual appropriation spending. So most of the all of the Department of Ed K-12 spending is not part of reconciliation. It's sort of other mandatory spending, things like Medicaid, you might have heard, and SNAP or food stamps. And I'll talk briefly about that. There are some impacts on that for the after school field, but it's distinct and separate from the annual appropriations process. Next slide. Let's start with FY25. So again, this bill actually passed and signed into law as a full year continuing resolution on March 15th. So a couple months ago now. Again, these are the funds that will help support after school programs and school for Title I starting on this August. So this upcoming school year. The challenge here is that state education agencies that fund local programs with 21st Century need to know how much money they're getting for fiscal year 2025. And because that spending bill didn't pass until March, and because the Department of Ed is currently understaffed, there has been a delay in getting those letters out and those allocations. The state agencies are supposed to be able to know how much money they are going to have for things like 21st Century Community Learning Center by now. And then as of July 1st, they're supposed to have access to those funds so they can get those funds down to the local level or hold new grant competitions, etc. Right now, because those allocations have not yet gone out from the Federal Department of Education to state agencies, we're telling folks, and most state education agencies are saying to sort of more or less base what you got last year, what the funding amount for the state was last year. It won't be exactly the same as last year because of the formula, things change, but more or less to plan for that. This got cut off a little bit, but important to note, there is what we call a rescission process going on for fiscal year 2025. At this point, 21st Century and any education funding is not part of that process. So those funds, as of now, do exist, and by law, the Department of Ed should send those down. We are hoping and hearing that next week, those letters may go out to state education agencies. So if you are expecting to be running a 21st Century program this school year, this upcoming school year, know that that should all be fine, that those funds are coming. If for some reason that doesn't happen, you will know about it. There are steps that we can take in order to address that. But as of now, we're waiting for those letters to go out and those allocations to start. Next slide. Fiscal year 2026. So this is the one that the president first did a skinny budget on May 2nd, full budget request on May 30th. Really important to note, this is a proposal, it's not law. So unlike FY25 that passed into law, this is sort of the beginning of the appropriations process for the fiscal year 2026 spending process. Again, school year covers the school year 26-27. The challenging news is that there was a 15% proposed cut to Department of Education spending. It's about $12.4 billion. It's unprecedented in terms of that amount. It does continue to fund Title I Part A, however, as well as IDEA. However, most other programs are either eliminated or consolidated into a block grant, with one exception, the charter school grant program, which actually got proposed increase. But for our purposes, particularly around after school and summer learning funding, a new block grant called the K-12 Simplified Funding Program is proposed. It would collapse 18 programs, including 21st Century, into, and those 18 programs right now are about $6.5 billion worth of funding, collapse it down into about a $2 billion program. So collapse, consolidate, and cut is what the proposal is. Next slide. Yeah. So in particular, to us, this is an elimination of a proposed elimination, sorry, of 21st century community learning centers. It means, if you look at the budget proposal, there's a 0 there next to the 21st century line. That dedicated 1.3 billion that's in the current fiscal year 2025, would not be in, if the president's proposal comes to pass, would not be in law for upcoming years. So starting 26-27 school year. That would mean the state departments of ed getting those 21st century funds that they didn't do the competitions, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, all those that are eligible would not get those funds. Instead, again, you'd have this 18 program $2 billion fund. And after school and summer would be an allowable use of those funds, but so would all the other purposes of those other grants. So teacher professional development, rural education grant is part of that. Funding for homeless children and youth is part of that, arts education, as well as any other additional purposes that a state might want to add to that block grant. So a lot of those details would have to be worked out in whatever legislative proposal would actually be advanced to pass. We'll probably see something like that in July, but at least for now, the proposal is extremely troubling, but it's also important to note, again, it's a proposal. Congress can reject it, and they rejected similar proposals to eliminate 21st century every fiscal year from 2017 to 2020. So the key is making sure that members of Congress understand the importance of these funds, of dedicated support for after school and summer, what impact it's having on the ground now, so that they choose not to follow this proposal. Next slide. Impacts, so about nearly 10,000 sites right now around the country and territories utilize 21st century funds for summer and after school programs, about 1.4 million students. And again, this would be starting the 26-27 school year, where you would see less program funding if the proposal passes, less capacity building and support. So also that sort of state activity and national funds that do the evaluation, the data collection, the quality supports. That's also part of 21st century that would likely be gone as part of a consolidated block grant. What's being done? Really, the key here again is to raise voices. In Alaska, you are super fortunate to have one of the main champions of after school in the House and the Senate, and Senator Murkowski, for a long time, both in the appropriations process when she was on that committee, and then in the HELP committee, which is the Senate Education Committee. She has fought hard and long to protect 21st century from previous plans to consolidate it, going back to 2014, 2015. Her and her staff really understand the importance of the funding and of after school and summer in the state of Alaska. So we're super fortunate, and love to continue to work with you to support her and her efforts to defend and stand up for after school and summer programs. But lots of work being done in terms of letters to appropriators, both signed by members of Congress and Senate, as well as national and state and local organizations. Thomas and others from the state were down in DC in May, right after the skinny budget came out, to talk to Senator Murkowski, but also to your entire delegation, all three, around the need for 21st century. We've had since May 2nd, more than 16,000 advocates sending almost 50,000 emails, but a lot more still needs to be done. So if you sent an email, thank you. But there are lots of other actions that you can take and work with parents and young people and others in your community, really just to raise the profile and to say, this is why these programs are so important. This is why they matter, whether it's the academic piece, whether it's the social emotional supports or foundational skills, rather, whether it's the meals that are being served there, the physical activity students have access to, the workforce skills, and also for working parents themselves, like knowing that their students are supported and secure in those hours when they're in the office or on the job. Next slide. A couple other things briefly about the fiscal year 26 budget. There's obviously a lot more in there. We have lots of blogs that dive into details on this, but TRIO, Gear Up, Federal Work Study, all proposed for elimination. Full service community schools proposed for elimination. AmeriCorps, IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. STEM education gets a pretty big proposed cut. There are, some more bright side-ish areas. Child Care Development Block Grant is not proposed for a cut, it's proposed at level funding as well. And there's a couple other proposals in there too around the Make America Healthy Again that could potentially represent some increased funding. The school lunch, school breakfast, after school meals, summer meals, those are all mandatory programs. So they're not part of the annual discretionary process. So no proposed cuts to those in here. Next slide. I think that might be the last. So what's ahead? Funding outlook. So FY25, still waiting on those allocations. Fingers crossed next week. FY26, the proposal now is out. Congress is considering it. The House Appropriations Committees have already marked up 3 of their spending bills, including the Department of Agriculture bill. They're not expected to get to the education spending bill until week of July 21st. So lots of time still to make sure your lawmakers know, understand the value and importance of this funding and of these programs. And then even after that, going into August, members will be on recess, House and Senate, but then they'll come back in September. Whether they'll actually get a spending bill done and compromise between the House and the Senate remains to be seen. We could see likely a continuing resolution and pushing this into the fall and possibly even to next year. Again, it took them all the way till March of the current fiscal year to get fiscal year 25 done. So a long time. What that means is uncertainty, but also a long time to make sure they understand the value of the programs. And then again, flagging reconciliation, completely separate, different. There are implications there around child tax credit expansion, around the student loan changes, and some impacts of some of the tax cuts, mostly on the negative side from an after-school summer perspective, although the child tax credit expansion and some of the other pieces would be on the positive side. Senate's working on that now. House passed the bill. Still a long way to go in that process, although they've set a deadline of July 4th. We have a blog and an action alert up separate on reconciliation as well, if you want to learn more there as well. And with that, I think a couple things, and I know Thomas will go into this more, lots of tools and resources to reach out, share your story, engage parents and others in the community, pediatricians, law enforcement, others who champion after school. Afterschoolworksforamerica.org is our campaign page. Next slide gives you a screenshot, I think. Yep. And you can go in and check in your state. Pasted Alaska in here. We estimate about 53 communities served with 21st Century currently, about just under 7,000 students. And of course, the budget would shrink that down to 0, the proposed budget. But that's not going to happen because we're all going to raise our voices and make sure Congress understands that that's not going to work. Last slide is just how to reach out. Feel free to reach out if there's any way we can be helpful. And thank you again. I'm sorry I went over my time, Thomas.
That is A-OK, Eric. Lots of important stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Any questions for Eric?
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Sometimes my audio doesn't work. Okay. Eric, apologies if I missed this because I know you covered 10,000 topics and more. And I know this question came up in the pause call we just had around the confusion between the reconciliation and the FY26 budget and how there's been some miscommunication even in the media about the effects or the non-effects of reconciliation to the FY26. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but do you mind just talking a little bit more about, do they influence each other or do they not influence each other, just for clarification?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So yes, there has been a lot of confusion on this, and it's sort of the flood the zone, I think strategy of the administration of doing lots of things at once. And so it's hard to sort of focus and keep track of all of them. But yeah, so reconciliation is simply the term for a process that Congress can use, a vehicle that's been around for quite a while, that essentially focuses on mandatory spending, so not the annual discretionary appropriations. Again, so things like Medicaid, school lunch, student loans, Social Security, those are all sort of mandatory programs. And the advantage to using it, and it really only gets used by Congress when the same party controls the White House, the House, and the Senate. When they control all 3 bodies, the advantage is that you don't need 60 votes to pass it in the Senate. You just need a simple majority. Most things you need 60 votes to pass because of the filibuster rule in the Senate. And so that's why it's attractive. The last time we saw reconciliation used was actually 2021 for the American Rescue Plan. You may recall that. That passed COVID relief funds. That was President Biden, and the House and Senate were both under Democratic control. Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act was passed by reconciliation. The last President Trump 2017 tax cut that this reconciliation will in part extend those tax cuts. That was reconciliation. That was 2017. It is sort of a non-annual, non-discretionary process that's really used because of that simple majority. There are a lot of rules around it. You can't just do anything in it, and that's why 21st century or sort of K-12 education won't be part of reconciliation, because there are rules that the Senate parliamentarian sort of governs that process and would reject anything that sort of broke those rules around reconciliation. In terms of the question of how it impacts fiscal year 2026, I mean, it does spend money. So reconciliation bills generally, although they were originally envisioned to shrink the deficit and to cut spending, the last couple ones, including this one, actually increase the deficit and spend more money. This one will spend somewhere, depending on what the Senate does, estimates of $2 to $3 trillion that'll be added to the deficit, mostly to pay for tax cuts. And that will have an impact on the annual appropriations process. It won't necessarily impact FY26 directly, but FY27 and future, there'll just be less funds for discretionary spending, because we're obligating all of this sort of mandatory spending through mostly, again, through tax cuts that will have to be paid for. And therefore less of the pie shrinks the pie for the overall federal budget sort of pie for discretionary funding. I don't know if that was clear, but that's the best way, I think, to describe how the annual appropriations process sort of intersects with the reconciliation process. There are, some exceptions. There is an increase in defense spending through the reconciliation that they're able to do with mandatory funds, funding for border security. So there are some things that, won't be in the fiscal year 2026 military, say, discretionary funding, because they're in reconciliation. So there are other ways they interplay. But from our perspective, and sort of specifically with education funding, reconciliation mainly, some of the child care tax credit pieces will impact us in a positive way. Hopefully, more families will have access to more funds that they can deduct, mostly middle-class families. However, some of the other changes to SNAP and Medicaid, will impact sort of indirectly eligibility for school meals, sort of the direct certification process. So there are some things that sort of get into the weeds. Again, I'll point you to the blog, or if we have time, happy to go in more. Love talking about this stuff. But yeah, hopefully that sort of answers the question in terms of what the differences are. But it is confusing, and we have seen a lot of folks, sort of because they came out at the same time, think that reconciliation is the package that would potentially cut 21st century, and that's apples and oranges. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric. Really appreciate you and the After School Alliance's work in DC to support and ensure that we keep after school funding alive and well from the federal front. So thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is Summer Learning Week. Summer Learning Week is coming up quickly. Summer Learning Week is July 14th through 18th, but you can celebrate Summer Learning Week whatever is good for you and your program. This week, you should be receiving a mailer that will contain the Summer Learning Week poster there on the screen, as well as some other great resources for you. We're encouraging you to get social with us online. You'll see starting here in this week, you'll start seeing our Summer Learning Week's social media package being rolled out and posted. There's also a social media toolkit that you'll see on our website that I'll share here in a moment. Also new this year, we're asking you to register your Summer Learning Week events. This helps us be able to track what's happening around the state and invites others to come celebrate your summer program with you. And we are happy to help you host a policymaker. I'm going to pull up right now our Summer Learning Week website so you can see the full bit. Taylor and Myrna from our team have been busy working on our Summer Learning Week resources. So if you go to our website, akafterschool.org, you can then scroll over Advocate. You'll see Summer Learning. You're going to click that link there, and it will take you to our Summer Learning Week page. Inside, these are hyperlinks here. We're going to make those look a little more hyper. Those hyperlinks are looking like lethargic links right now, so we're going to make those stand out a little bit more. But you'll see inside of here that these are different tips and tools that you can add on and ways to celebrate, including social media posts, a downloadable version of the poster, our bingo card that you'll get inside of your mailer, as well as hosting or signing up your event on it. You'll also see these are resources for families on ways to engage kids at home. Many of these activities that are listed inside of here, you can do also at your programs and ways of engaging the community. If you scroll down, the thing that is new, we are asking for you to help us register your summer learning program. Right now, we are the one summer learning celebration on here. Our goal is to have at least 10 by the end of the summer. Again, Summer Learning Week celebration doesn't have to happen during the official Summer Learning Week days. It could happen next week. It could happen in 3 weeks or any time across the summer. The goal with Summer Learning Week celebrations is really to shine a spotlight on your program and to raise awareness of the importance of summer learning programs. And so it can look like a family night. It can look like a open house for it. It could be a community-wide celebration. It can be a wide variety of things. We're asking you to register your event with us so that we are able to track to see where it is. And that helps us be able to draw more attention to your celebration as well. If you keep scrolling down the page, you'll see our resources, including the Summer Learning Week poster, our bingo cards for family engagement. This is great for you to photocopy and be able to share with families for activities to do at home or to do in your program. You can also find our most recent blog. You'll be seeing that blog up and live. It's posted live, and you'll see we'll be sharing those programs that were highlighted this year over the next couple of weeks. Going back there as well. You can also find our content. Oops, that linked us back to the wrong spot. We might need to fix that link. I'm gonna flag that. Yep, that was the wrong link. Hold on. You can find our social media content then a little bit further down. You can find all the full social media content online. You can download it and pull it. This includes the Google slide deck, our Google deck that will have all the Summer Learning Week slides inside of here that you can use and update. They are saved in both Facebook and Instagram format. We're encouraging folks to go ahead and use those to share out or to families. You will also see we've created some sample media information inside of here too that you can use and link on as well. So that is our Summer Learning Week resources this year. We encourage you to enjoy summer like I think so many of our partners are this week, out and about and having a great time with students out in Alaska. Next on our new business is Conference Save the Date. Anna, you're up.
Great. So, if you receive our newsletter, you might have seen this, I think it was last week, but the official save the date for the Alaska Out of School Time Conference just came out. Conference will be this year, November 17th is our pre-conference day, 18th and 19th is our main conference days here in Anchorage at the Egan Civic and Convention Center. So mark your calendars. The website will be updated as more information comes out around registration and room block and all of the information about that. But what you can find on the website right now, if you are interested or anyone on your team or anyone that you know is interested in sharing curriculum or best practices that you use with your youth, please feel free. The conference workshop proposal form is now on the website. The due date for that is August 29th, so please get that in as soon as you can. In our first round of reviews will come in August. So again, if you, your team, or someone in your organization has a skill or a resource that they want to share with the field, please encourage them to fill out the workshop proposal form. And I will drop the link to the conference website in the chat. But if you are not signed up for a newsletter, please sign up. That is where you will get the latest news about everything conference.
Great, thank you, Anna. Next up, we have Aaron with YQPI overview and recap.
Yes, so at the end of every school year, I always like to pull all of the data from the previous year from our Youth Program Quality Initiative. And as a reminder, that is a process that many of you go through with us, where you do an assessment of your program in fall, and then you come to planning with data in winter to do some root cause analysis and set some goals. And then in spring, you're implementing your goals in the improve phase and maybe attending trainings and coaching. And then in springtime, you do another assessment. So just a recap of participation this year, and we'll look at some data quickly. We had 58 sites participate in varying degrees with us this year. 22 of those sites were 21st Century Community Learning Centers. 25 of those sites were Positive Youth Development After School Program grantees. And there was overlap between some of the PIDAP and the 21st Century programs. And 21 sites were other community organizations. Overall, programs conducted 40 fall assessments. 38 sites attended planning with data, 26 sites set goals, 10 sites attended coaching sessions, and 27 sites did spring assessments. And we'll look at another breakdown of that in just a second. But in the upper right-hand corner, there is a word cloud. And if you're not familiar with how word clouds work, the bigger the word, the more prevalent that topic was in the goals. So this is a word cloud of the goals that program set this year. So you can see that belonging and reflection and leadership were some pretty prevalent goals this year. Reflection is usually a pretty popular one. Leadership is one that was a little newer that a lot more programs are leaning into this year, which is really great to see programs starting to focus on some of those higher level skills. And you can see some of the other ones in here involved both youth planning and staff planning, skill building, collaboration, open-ended questions. So wide variety of goals set this year. So this slide breaks down site participation a little bit more. So you can see from this chart, we had 7 program sites that did everything that we offered, from fall assessments, goal setting, attending coaching, and conducting spring assessments. We had 10 sites that did almost everything. They did assessments and set goals. We had a few sites that did fall assessments and set goals, maybe attended coaching, but didn't get to their spring assessment. A couple sites that did just assessments, but did not set goals. 9 sites that did a fall assessment and then kind of dropped off. We had 3 sites that did spring assessment, kind of joining at the end. And then a couple sites that just set goals. And some of those bottom rows may sound kind of strange, but a lot of them are actually programs that have multiple sites, so they're using data from other sites throughout the process. And there's also just the fact of life that sometimes programs have to join or leave the process whenever they're able to, with those on-ramps and off-ramps. A quick overview of what we offered as a network throughout this process this year. We hosted 25 trainings and workshops, including the PQA basics training, where you learn how to use the tool, the youth work methods workshops, planning with data. Anna and I went out and conducted 11 external assessments in fall. And this spring we went out and conducted 9 external assessments this spring. And we held coaching sessions for 10 sites this spring as well. And so now we're going to take a quick look at some of the data collected this year. So this first slide is just the school age PQA, so that's K through 5. And then on the slide, you see a bar graph that has a kind of turquoise color and a gray color. And the top one is programs that did self-assessments, and the bottom is external assessments. The turquoise bar is fall assessments, and the gray bar is spring assessments, and it's broken into the 4 main categories of the program assessment tool, which is safe environment, supportive environment, interaction, and engagement. So kind of what we're looking for here is wanting to see an increase in program quality between fall and spring, which you can see we get in most of our categories here. You see the gray bar going up a little bit between fall and spring. So that is really great to see growth throughout the year. One thing I'll say about this too is not all programs do both self-assessments or both external assessments. So these aren't necessarily the same program side by side. So you may have some programs that did a self-assessment in fall and an external assessment in spring. So it's cool to see that even though it might not be the same programs next to each other, overall we're seeing growth throughout all programs. This next slide is the same thing, except using the youth program quality assessment tool, which is grades 5 through 12. And so again, we're looking between that fall and spring to see growth and change throughout the year. We do have a lot fewer programs using the youth tool. So there might be a little less drastic changes that we see, but we definitely do see some growth in most of the areas, which is great. All right, so now that we've been doing the YPQI this is our 4th year doing it. It was really fun to be able to pull some kind of longevity data. So this is data from we've been using the school age tool for 3 years. So this is data over the past 3 years to see how programs have grown throughout the years. And so the turquoise color is school year 2022 to 23, gray is 23 to 24, and the green is 24 to 25, and again, broken into those 4 areas. And kind of what you might expect to see is that each year we want to see programs getting higher and higher, which if we were just looking at 1 or 2 programs at a time, we would typically see that. But what we have to consider here is that we've had a lot of programs joining the initiative each year. So that I think is kind of why we're seeing it pretty level here, because we've kind of doubled in size in the number of programs using the school age tool every year. So I think once we get a pretty consistent base of programs the next few years, I think we'll start to see that go up. With the youth PQA tool, we do see the upward trajectory, largely because we've had the same programs using the youth tool year after year. So we have a pretty consistent base. So we're able to see that over time, that consistent growth. And then just wanted to give a quick look side by side at some samples of programs who have been doing this for a long time, and then programs that are just kind of getting started. And we can see that programs tend to start in kind of similar areas, and the growth seems to be pretty consistent no matter where you're starting with that upward trajectory over the years. This was the first year I did a more in-depth feedback survey of participating programs. And so what we learned from you all this year is that the highest impact things we're providing are the resources and materials, the assessment data, and the coaching. Some areas that we could maybe grow in that we're planning to put some more resources towards in the future is doing more with professional learning community and kind of inter-program connection. So we have some plans for that coming. And the biggest barriers you identified, oh, I did not change out those bullet points. Okay, the biggest barriers were staff turnover, organizational capacity, and scheduling difficulties. Sorry, I just copied those bullet points from another slide and didn't change them out. So yes, going forward, some things that we are doing. New this year, we are going to start offering a few scales from the social emotional learning program quality assessment tool for programs that have been doing this for a few years to kind of tier up the level of skills and best practices that we're looking at. Like I mentioned, we want to do more with professional learning communities. So we're hoping to maybe pair some form of learning community with each of the trainings that we're doing, and hopefully bring in some of you as some experts to help share out some of that. And down the line, we're also looking at more ways to tier the experience, maybe pairing programs by experience level, or just finding other ways to really keep things fresh and growing. And then we also want to start building out our coaching efforts, because although we didn't have a ton of programs participate in coaching, it was identified as one of the most impactful parts of the process. So would love to do more with that.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? All right, well, thank you, Aaron, for keeping us on track with YPQI and all that hard work by all of our programs moving forward with it. It's great to see that positive growth. We are wrapping up towards the end of our meeting here. There are just the last bit is on meeting and training reminders. As a reminder, National Summer Learning Week is July 14th through 18th. Our next statewide call is August 14th, so it's right before school start, 12 to 1. After that, we did give some other dates coming up too. October, the statewide call after that, October 9th, 12 to 1. Lights on after school this year is October 23rd. That's our national day to celebrate lights on, or the importance of after school. Lights On is a nationwide celebration. Each year we have over 50 programs around the state celebrating. We'd love to have your program celebrate. And as a reminder, make sure you are saving November 17th through 19th for the Alaska Out of School Time Conference. You can find all this information more on our website at akafterschool.org/events. We are at the end of our agenda here, and right now there is just a partner share out if anyone has anything that they would like to share. Otherwise, we might be able to give you back a couple minutes every day. All right, I'm not hearing anything. Thank you very much. We will be in touch soon. Have a wonderful summer. Bye-bye.